Welcome to another live stream. We will be beginning our live stream in a second, but before we do, let's just say what a sad day it is in America with the news of the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade, which means that women will have less, they will have more access to unsafe abortions, which is sad because safety should be our number one thing of protecting other human beings. It's interesting that they have value for a life that is not right now on this earth living, but would put the people on this earth and their lives in danger. So it's really, really sad to see this type of um, thing happening in the world. But yeah, there's nothing much we can do about that other than hope that common sense and good sense will prevail in this time. So we shall begin with the with this. And we'll look at Emerson today. Emerson is the first person we're looking at in terms of the pseudo-nondualist. Whether he is a pseudo-nondualist, I don't know. I don't know if I can make a judgment call on that yet, but we will react to what he says. We'll listen to what he says, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. And do write your comments. Do like this video. So yeah, let's begin. Let me share my screen. Here we go. I was asked to particularly look at this one. So in fact, let me do that, and we'll do this. Okay, so let's have a look at this video. Okay, this is deep sleep. I hope I don't fall under deep sleep while watching this. Okay.
So what's being expressed here is that this is deep sleep. This is a suggestion. This is the uncreated, the unknowable, the eternal death of all knowing, the undoing, the infinite resting in peace, the zero desiring, the freedom in hopelessness, the collapse of history, the dissolving of the future, the end of judgment. In deep sleep, there is the absence of you. There are no others. There's no time. There's no continuity, no consequences. The end of the imagined karmic cycle, no preparations for the afterlife, no cycles of life and death. Deep sleep is the peace that is indistinguishable, the love without conditions, the absolute freedom of nothing. In deep sleep, there is no doing. There are really no choices, no possessions, the inexplicable innocence. In deep sleep, there is no witnessing, there's no awareness.
Okay, so before I let him continue on with his spiel, there is a massive difference between deep sleep in Advaita Vedanta and um, deep sleep is one of the three states that we have to transcend. So you have waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and the whole aim is to go to the Turiya state. This is the traditional Advaita perspective. Now, not just Advaita, but even in traditional non-duality, this is the one thing that is talked about. Now, the issue that I have here, he says there is no awareness in deep sleep. Well, what tells you in deep sleep or when you wake up that you had a good night's rest or a good day's rest when you had a nap? What tells you this? What highlights that to you? That has to be pure, that has to be awareness. So, issues already with Emerson. He doesn't so far come across as egoic. Same thing that happened with Anna Brown. I feel that it starts off nice, but then I don't know where it's gonna go. So let's see. Let him continue. But 1 minute 32 seconds in, already into with the philosophy, with the understanding. But let's see.
No abiding, no consciousness, no absolute, there's no true nature, there's no intelligence, there are no words, it's thoughtless, it's nameless, sourcelessness, the openness, the ultimate relaxation. Although these words are just trying to attempt to express this unknowable nothing, when there are no thoughts, it's deep sleep. Someone actually emailed me earlier a quote from, I don't usually do quotes, but I like this one. It's from, sorry, I can't read it. I have to put on my real glasses just a moment, okay? That glasses doesn't have a lens. Sorry.
Okay, I don't know why he's not wearing his real glasses. A bit weird, but I guess they are apparent glasses, so that's fine. It's an apparent happening. Um, okay, bit weird.
Sorry. So this is from a physicist, Erwin Schrödinger. He says, what we observe as material bodies and forces are nothing but shapes and variations in the structure of space. Particles are just appearances, or Shakumen in German, I guess. The world is given only once, not one existing and not one perceived. Subject and object are only one. The barrier between them cannot be said to have broken down as a result of recent experience in the physical sciences, for this barrier does not exist.
Okay, so one thing to know about Schrödinger is that he was heavily influenced by the Upanishads and really praised the Upanishads. So these people believe that no text can get you there. He reads out a quote that is literally pointing to a particular direction, yet he claimed earlier that there is no pointing in this teaching. So contradictions already begin. Not good, but 3 minutes in, he still seems like a pleasant person. I'm not seeing the pseudo non-dual um, kind of ego and arrogance that can appear. Oh, the glasses have come off.
Just a second, sorry.
Oh, the fake ones are on.
This one doesn't have any glare. That's why I use it. Um, so what's being expressed is that this is deep sleep, and the particles are like the dreams, the dream of knowing, the dream of choice, the dream of others, the dream of me, the dream of desires, the dream of intelligence, the dream of time. They don't really exist. Since
Well, they do. If you put a meeting like he has for 1 hour, obviously time does exist. Why do you have a meeting for an hour or 2 hours? It's because time does exist. This is the problem. One, you can't always keep talking from the ultimate level. You have to understand that there's a relative reality in which we live in. I constantly emphasize this. It's the one thing that I find a lot of people who approach Advaita do not understand, is that there is a relative reality and the ultimate reality. So, um, and people can't seem to merge the two. And it's really important that we merge the two. If we don't merge the two, we're not going to get a deep understanding. We're not going to get a deep, we will not understand the depths that are required to understand a really simple philosophy. Advaita is not complicated, but these people obviously make it complicated, even though they claim it's simple.
Since there's no barrier, deep sleep and dream are the same. In the awakeness, or as you can say, there's really no difference, but I'm just trying to create a story here. In this awakeness, there's this space and there's these particles that seem to appear like form, solidity, ideas, whatever seems to appear, passion, sadness, others, subject, object. They're not really in existence as well. They're just appearances. There's really no barrier. There's no separation in anything. So seemingly there's this wanting for this deep sleep, the relaxation, the absence. But what seems to be appearing is this simultaneous appearance of what seems to be dream and deep sleep, or as we can say it, in this awakeness, this emptiness or nothingness with everythingness. In that appearance, there is this seemingly subject object, choices, attainment, here or there, others, but they're just particles. They're just appearances. They're
So he's created a new word for himself, particles, which I've not heard anyone else use so far. Maybe there are people who have, but first time I'm hearing it from him. In terms of anything that he's saying, again, it's not really anything interesting or new, in my opinion. Very much the same thing. Yeah, nothing amazing.
really nothing. And
It really is nothing.
and it's quite obvious that that seems to be what's happening, but it's not quite obvious when it's seen through a perspective, when it's seen, when it's understood, when it is trying to be captured. Because what seems to be understood in a dualistic mindset, although there's no mind, is that there is a here and there, that I am actually moving through time and space. It's like the particle is thinking, the particle is the ideas in a thoughtless, in a empty space.
No.
So all of this wanting, all of this desiring are just appearances. They seem completely real. It's kind of like deep sleep, and there's this dream of wanting, this dream of desires, this dream of separation. And
Uh, Again, not completely understanding the Advaita principle. He's kind of mismatched it into his own thing, but not a proper description. Uh, Again, he's more pleasant. I give him that. I mean, 5 minutes, I haven't felt like I wanted to turn him off or anything, um, but yeah, not. It's still the same stuff being said. Nothing new.
it feels absolutely real, but they're all appearance. And it's quite fascinating, although science or quantum physics is just another story, but science seems to be catching up to what is being expressed here.
Well, do you want science to catch up or not? I mean, it's just a story, so why why say this comment? I mean, you can't just play something off as a story and then talk about it like that, as if to solidify what you're saying, or to kind of bring um to bring some kind of intellectual approval for the stuff that you're saying.
or trying to hint at it at least. And what with that being said, so everything is deep sleep. Everything is nothing. Everything is empty.
No.
In these appearances of wanting to get to peacefulness, wanting to get to problems, or getting rid of problems, or acquiring this or attaining this, are just particles appearing in space, appearances appearing in deep sleep. So, in there's deep sleep and there's no separation, there's really no separation between deep sleep and dreaming. And since there's no one dreaming, this is all a dream and deep sleep apparently occurring simultaneously and spontaneously. Um,
And this is what I mean, because there's no clarity in what he said about the actual three states. He's trying to explain the Turiya state, but it's so bad, it's unbelievable. He's just really not, because he's trying to fix that philosophy into the pseudo non-dual philosophy. It's not working. It's not jamming together. It's not vibing together really. So, but nice try, Emerson. Not working.
when it's seen that there's no one, there's almost like a lucidity to this dreaming. There's almost a lucidity seeing that this is also deep sleep and this is also
No, even in dream state, when you feel that you are the person, you feel you are the person. It's only when you wake up you realize that that wasn't the person. But remember, there is a very beautiful story that is mentioned about when Ashtavakra wakes up from a bad dream where he's a beggar in the kingdom, and he wakes up and he's obviously the king, but he says, "Is this real or is that real? Like, is my dream real or is my waking state real? What is real? What is true? What is reality? Is that my reality where I was a beggar? Or is this my reality where I'm the king?" So, totally different things. And I hope that this example has given you more clarity than what Emerson has said, which is gobbledygook, because it doesn't explain the different states properly. And doesn't explain why the waking state or the dream state or the deep sleep state are not permanent. Therefore, they are not real. But he doesn't do a good job of explaining it because for him, it's all a story. And when you say things like that, you don't have to explain it then. It's just a story. Like, for example, if you finish a book, a fiction book, you put it down, you forget about it. There's no need to expand upon it unless you're the writer. And same thing with this pseudo non-duality. You don't need to explain anything after saying it's a story. Just end it there. But no, he has to continue for another 50 minutes to say the same thing, that everythingness is nothingness and nothingness is everythingness. So yeah, here we go.
appearances of what seems to be happening, like time, um, speaking, hearing, holding, solidity, all of this apparent suggestions in timelessness. And it's quite fascinating that it's quite obvious, but it's not obvious when it's thought about. It's not obvious when it's tried to be understood. But the obviousness is does not require a thinker because there's no thinker. The obviousness is does not require an understanding because who's to understand? It can never be even be experienced because there's no experiencer. It's the immediacy, it's the directness of what's being spoken about here that it's all deep sleep. And disappearances, there seems to be particles or dream suggesting that there is a subject and object, that there is a you and me, that there's something that is happening when it's all nothing.
Okay. In my opinion, after that, he should just end the Zoom thing or whatever he's doing. But I found him to be more pleasant than the other ones I've heard. Like there isn't an emptiness in him. I find that there is. He's a bit more warm and a bit more. I know his words are a bit more palatable, but coming from the traditional sense, I don't really think much of him either. From all this he has said, for me, he could have just ended it with "There is nothing. There's only this. That's it." He didn't have to go more into the spiel that he gave. The classic laughter.
So if it's all deep sleep and if it's all dreaming, there's no one that needs to wake up because there's no.
Okay, if there's only failure to wake up, why do these meetings? Obviously, you believe there is ignorance, because if you did not believe there is ignorance, you wouldn't hold these meetings. So, and now the question is going to be that because in a bit there are going to be people who's going to ask him questions, and we'll cover at least one of those. Will he continue to say that this is all a dream? Is this all nothing? Will he continue to say that? He said something I forgot
So
now.
if it's all deep sleep and if it's all dreaming, there's no one that needs to wake up.
Oh yeah, will he tell them that they don't need to wake up? That they've already woken up. The problem with that is when you give that notion that there's nobody to wake up, that means people won't put the effort in. And this path does require effort. Yes, in the end, at the end of when you're at realization, it does become effortless. Getting to that awareness is effortless. But maintaining that is what's challenging. Maintaining that is what can be seen as difficult. So, um, yeah, I'm not buying what he's saying. Yeah, I'm not really buying it at all.
Because there's no one at all. Because the idea of waking up is just another appearance. The idea of getting here or getting to a state of deep sleep or peacefulness or liberation or freedom is already forever being presented. It never leaves. It's always available. It's already free. It's already completed. So the particles and the noise are the distortion that keeps on appearing and trying to get what's already here, what's already this, what's already free, what's already infinitely appearing, are just ideas that seems to come in and out. Like in a dream. Sometimes in a dream there is this nightmare. Sometimes it's blissful. It's this ever changing. It's like chaos sometimes in a sea of deep sleep. Like nightmare sometimes in a sea of deep sleep. But since there's no barrier, there's no here or there, all of these appearance, chaos and peacefulness are the same.
Sorry, I didn't mean to yawn. It's boring.
So if you'd like to have a chat about anything at
Okay,
all,
nice.
you can raise your hand, or you can simply just unmute yourself. David, hey David.
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
So you said that it's always available, but I'm not
Yes.
entirely convinced that that's the case. I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. Let's say we all live on a planet, and on that planet, all there is the color green, and there
Yes.
aren't any other colors. Everything. So that paradigm is the green is green, and everything. And these green people are walking about not aware that there are other colors on other
Okay.
planets.
Yeah.
And you're here from the planet Red, saying, "Listen, the color red exists and it's always available. But
Yeah.
for us, we can only see the color red in green."
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, so that's the
Yeah.
predicament, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
There's.
I
It's
would
all.
basically
Sorry.
I'm
Go ahead.
raising issue with you when you
Yeah.
say that it's always available. That's something
Yeah.
Tony Parson always said. It's
Yes.
not, is it? Is it always available? He says
It's
it's always
always,
inviting. It's always inviting you,
yeah, yeah, it's
but it's not.
always,
It's not. It's saying you don't exist, so you can't be invited. There's
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
available for you here.
that's right, that's right. So in thoughtlessness, when there are no thoughts, there's always this silence that's always available. So even when there's thoughts, there's also this silence. So what's always available is this silence, is this infiniteness, that all of this seeming
Not really answering the question. Question was with the example was totally different. I liked, so it seems like there is a bit of a disconnect with people and Tony Parsons. I feel there's some beef there, some issues, which is interesting. But again, Emerson doesn't come across like Sawdust for Dinner said. He seems kind. He doesn't come across as I've sensed anxiety a little or agitation, but it's not obnoxious or arrogant in any way. I just feel that he doesn't know how to answer this question. By his response already, it's not really answering the question.
distractions like color red, or difference between here and there, duality, is, as I said, is like the particles, kind of like that quote said, there's no barrier, there is no subject object. So in this infiniteness, on this nothingness, or in this emptiness or deep sleep, as I was mentioning, there's a dream of attaining this. So when that dream is when the thoughts or the dream or the particles or the appearances are basically absent, it's always here. Even when the thoughts or particles or choice is there, it's always present. So that's what's being described as always available. Not available for anyone because there's not anyone, but it's always forever. And it that never ever leaves. And that's what seems to be longed for, is that this that's why when it's said that what seems to be sought seems to be hidden because it appears in everything. So this silence, or this peacefulness, or in this infiniteness, appears even in chaos or in anarchy, or even in choices, or even the idea that I am here. So everything that appears, um, chaos, thought of red or green or yellow, is also empty because it's appearing in this space. Since there is no subject object, there's no differences, there's no boundaries, everything that seems to appear is sameness, wholeness. But the illusion of this, noise in silence is it comes in and out. It comes in and out. That's the apparition, which is really nothing. It's always this vast emptiness.
So what's interesting is they'll also say at some point there is no emptiness, or there is no sound, or there's no silence. They co-opt what terms they want to use accordingly, but because they know language does not do well with what they're trying to talk about, it's always a struggle, and it's always difficult to remain consistent. Um, but yeah, Emerson, he's a nice guy so far, but he's saying the same talking points, nothing different. Still that pseudo non-duality. Again, doesn't really understand the difference between deep sleep and dreams and waking state. This idea about particles is interesting, but you kind of need the traditional Advaita to explain that properly. Um, that's what I think personally. But so far, the answer isn't that great. I mean, um, unfortunately, I think he does a decent job in trying to save his philosophy with the answer, but he doesn't. And he's totally misunderstanding what Schrodinger's saying. Schrodinger, when he says the things like it's beyond any barriers, is to kind of highlight that consciousness is beyond barriers. It's beyond man-made kind of instruments or man-made boundaries. It goes beyond that. When he talks about subject and object, it's the same thing. But to be honest, consciousness is always the subject. But yes, but in itself, consciousness is beyond subject and an object. So, but while you're in the body, consciousness is the subject. We are the object. So that's the way to explain it. But nice try, Emerson. Nice try.
So it's the underlying truth, if you will.
You can say that. You can say that. There's no truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's no truth
This
because
unknowableness. You know what I'm saying? The
truth,
unknowable
like many other
nothing.
things, is just one side of a coin, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
We know
That's
there's never
right.
an instance where there's only one side
That's
of a
right.
coin
Yeah.
presented.
Yeah, but it's seemingly, you know what I'm saying? For example, if there is, you know, for example, if there's physical pain or something, right? That appearance is so strong, you know what I'm saying, that it's everything. But what's not seen is that for that to appear, there's also this peacefulness behind it, this emptiness, this space for anything to appear. But that appearance is not separate from the space. It's also space, or it's also any form that appears in the formlessness. So form is also formless.
Agreed. But again, let me just emphasize that when there is the formless and there's forms, they are forms are required for you to experience things. He doesn't explain that very well. The argument is pretty bad that he's giving. I want to just take it back a bit to just
For anything to appear. But that appearance is not separate from the space. It's also space, or it's also any form that appears in the formlessness. So form is also formless. So there's no.
Well, that is true in terms of I understand what you're saying, but again, the way he's utilizing it is not good. So I hope David is able to give a good question back.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel that, you know, I guess it depends on how it's heard and how it's interpreted.
Yeah.
But I sometimes feel that this message, in a way, is kind of denying the separate reality, because for the separate reality, that for that bubble and anything that exists within that bubble, even though you could say that the underlying truth is that there is no separation, but for the paradigm that is that bubble, that is the truth.
Yeah,
and I sometimes feel that this message kind of denies that truth.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds that way, but I beg to differ.
Yeah.
It sounds that way, but begs to differ. No, it is that way. There is no other way of explaining that. But if he's going to beg to differ, let's listen to his argument. But again, I want to say, compared to the others, he's still a lot more respectful. Despite the challenge, and it is a direct challenge, this one, but he's still nice and he's still respectful. So I like Emerson for that.
So what's being expressed is whatever is appearing, the chaos, since it's not separate, is fully accepted. It's not rejected.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
For example, if there's sadness that's happening, there's sadness happening. It's not like, oh, there's no sadness. But there's an underlying, as you can like saying, peacefulness behind that. It's like lucid dreaming, right?
Yeah.
When there's always sleeping or deep sleep, as we whatever appears in the, you know, when there's a lucid dreaming apparently happening, the character knows that it's just dreaming. That there's no.
Okay, so interesting, but you can't use this example to support what you said before. And that's my biggest issue, is that he's utilizing this, which is more of a traditional way of responding, and then say, well, there is no self, there is no body, there is nobody experiencing anything. It's just happening. You can't utilize separation now and defend that separate reality, but it doesn't fit in your paradigm in the very beginning. You know, it's like, for example, if you're a size 8 and you're wearing size 6 shoes, it's gonna hurt you. It's not gonna fit. Your feet aren't gonna fit in that shoe. Same thing with the explanation he's just given. That's not gonna fit in the spiel that he gave prior to this. So, again, big red flag.
Solidity to it, that there's no realness to it, that it's both real and unreal appearing as whatever it is, right? So there is this big misconception about this communication, that it is a a denial, because you see a lot of the speakers joyful and jolly speaking about this Tony Parsons, um, and um, and there's this denial, for example, of whatever. It's just speaking from a non-dualistic, you know what I'm saying, voice, that there's nothing separate.
Yeah.
But this apparent, this parent character, if anger happens, and that's kind of like, I don't know if you've heard the Sam Harris and the Jim Newman interview, that they were just basically it's like two
Yeah, I
different
watched it.
wrestling the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
paradox or
Yeah,
something.
it's like oil and water.
All in water, because the other one, although it purports or kind of like suggests that that there's meditation and everything, it really sounds really peaceful, right? It sounds really inviting, and it talks about enlightenment as a preferred state of this silence and purity, and that when Jim started talking about anger might arise in a traffic jam. That's actually radical acceptance. It's not like, okay,
Yeah.
there's no one angry and everything. And someone in spirituality or in awareness or something, or kind of like in the power of now or all that kind of stuff, does not understand that. Because it
No, you don't understand our point, and that's the biggest problem. What you just explained does not fit into what you've been saying in the beginning. This is disingenuous, from Emerson.
has a preference. So the
Practices are very important. Practices is what gets us more stabilized in the understanding of the unreal. So when he said it's real and unreal, see, this is a difference. Because with Advaita Vedanta, we understand that Brahman is absolutely real. Everything else is Maya, which is real and unreal. But eventually, it's real and unreal when you're in the relative existence, in the transactional existence. But when you transcend, when you can fully merge into Brahman and understand that there is only Brahman, and it becomes completely concrete for you, then Maya is unreal. Then it's a total illusion. But you can't come into the world or teach this to the world from that level of Brahman. You have to understand that existence is still occurring, and therefore you can't say, oh, this is unreal. Like I always say in my podcast, if you're punched in the face, you're gonna feel pain. By saying that, by saying Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, is not going to stop the pain. Yeah, you can get to the awareness that there is no body that is feeling pain. Well, the body's feeling pain, but I am not identified with the body, but the body is feeling pain. That's different. And that's why Advaita also can fit into our language too. This stuff, it can't. But let me know. Let me know what you think, because maybe I've missed something. Maybe I've not captured something that he said that's really worth talking about. But yeah, if you joined here, do like this video on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And let's continue. But nice questions from David. And I'll just praise Emerson's kind of behavior. It's nice, it's respectful.
the actual suggestion that this radical non-duality is denial actually is actually a misnomer, because I see I thought spirituality and consciousness and awareness and all that kind of stuff, that was denial for me. Right, when I was a spiritual teacher, although I'm saying being vulnerable is okay now, my perception of it was that when there was sadness, I had to put up this front, right, of whatever. I could not talk about what's
No, this is a complete misunderstanding and mischaracterization of spirituality. In Advaita Vedanta, no, if you feel sad, you feel sad. You have to deal with the sadness. What's causing the sadness? What's the root cause of the sadness? What's the root cause of the suffering? Buddhism is based upon this. And the fact that he's turned around and said that this is not what is practiced, I think is very, again, disingenuous. It's not, he's not being realistic.
really going on. It could be a divorce or whatever that's happening, right? And I had to hide that, and I had to put on a face. in this communication, although there's
He had to put on the face. The practice or the spiritual teachings do not tell you to put on a face. So he should say he was not a real spiritual teacher, which is one. Two, he wasn't a real spiritual seeker. Two. Three, he didn't understand the teachings. And four, he was teaching the teachings without knowing the teaching, without having any experience. So the actual problem is him. And maybe he's a bit more dangerous than the other lot because there is the front of nicety, the front of, of kind of humility. But I don't think there's humility really there. It's tucked in. There is this arrogance that my way is the better way, and that other people who talk about practices don't understand it. But yeah, anyway, let's continue.
a lot of smiling here and everything like that. It talks about the sorrows. You know what I'm saying? There's just no separation. So whatever appears, it could be sadness or it could be irritation. Sometimes when there is something that is irritating, it's not brushed away as something that is just an appearance. Although it's an appearance, there is no one that's choosing to react or not.
But it does.
Again, you do have to choose to react or not. To say there's nobody choosing is again is just not true.
Say that it's not real though, and it's real for some people,
It's
isn't it?
I'll suggest
People who
I'll
believe
suggest
it to be real.
Yeah, I'll suggest I always say this, it's both unreal and real. It's
Yeah,
unreal, but
fair
it
enough.
feels completely
Yeah.
real. For example,
Yeah.
when you're dreaming at night, you could be having a nightmare and you wake up and you're quite perplexed by it. You're sweating, you absolutely thought that was real. And there's this diminishing idea that something that happened was absolutely real. It's kind of like, oh, it was just a dream. So what's being suggested here is that seeing when it's deep sleep and a nightmare happening or a dream happening, there's this lucidity or there's an openness to it. There's kind of like, okay, I'm saying it's not held on into kind of like made into another story or another thing or expanded into this narrative that I am having these problems or I have these dreams. It's just seen as a happening, kind of like in a dream. So that's what is being suggested, that there's a suspension, not just a suspension, but a collapse of all belief system. So a belief system, for example, that there is separation, that there is time, is vanished. In that apparent instance, when it's seen that there's never been anyone.
But you can't live in the state that he's talking about all the time. Like, this is where the disconnect is, because what's going to happen is you're going to have people following this, but because they can't remain in that state of radical non-duality, as they call it, they're going to keep feeling that they failed. And even though they may turn around and say there's no success or there's no failure, it won't match up because people won't feel that. They won't feel that level of connection, so or understanding. So the that's the other issue with this.
That has any of this.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I was David, I would have pushed a bit more, but that's okay. It's okay for him to keep it there. I do like the look of
Corey?
Emerson.
Hi, Emerson.
Oh,
Hi.
hi, Corey.
Hello
Sorry, I
there.
don't see the whole screen. I just saw that Mike got unmuted. So if for some,
okay.
just say hi, Emerson.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
How are you,
No,
Corey?
I'm okay. I'm quite good. Thank you at the moment. Yeah, just on that subject, like the peace, the nothingness beyond.
If there's no you, why did he ask how are you? If there's just this apparent happening. But respect him. That was just a joke, but I respect that he asked. That was quite nice. I really like that. Again, personable, but the teaching makes him I don't know.
Of everything you were just talking about. And I'm just thinking, so when there's nobody there, like you,
Yeah.
so when there is somebody there and they're going a parent, a person, they're going through a lot of trauma and difficulty. How different is it, the experience? Oh, because there's no experience for. I was going to say nobody there.
Yeah.
Like when you were ill.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
How do you don't quite know how to word it, but do you
Yeah, you can't
experience
word
that?
it.
I have
Because
actually a perfect story for that, with trauma and everything, and it's I've said this many times, so I'm sorry if it's being repeated again. Back last summer, there was an apparent. This is just a story, since there's no time. I'm just telling a storytelling here. There
Okay,
was an
because you have
apparent
to make sure
happening
people
where
know about that.
I came out of the restaurant during COVID time, and I got beat up. Basically,
Okay.
it was due to whatever. You know what I'm saying? Some people were trying
yeah,
to get in the restaurant, and now
yeah,
fast forward, it was really surprising that there was anger, kind of like, what the hell happened? And then the next day, it was nothing. I was walking San Miguel, and I was just going up, and then the victim services kept on calling me to see if I needed some counseling. Since there was nothing, there was the immediacy. And then fast forward when I went back to the restaurant, there was this apparent ominous feeling, kind of like a soundtrack in a movie. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. But it was not rejected. It was just this apparent, apparition or suggestion. So an answer to that question is that, there's an immediacy, a directness to what's happening. So there could be a reaction or no reaction to it, but it's not held on to. Since there's no one here, there's no neurosis, or there's no kind of like posting on Facebook about what happened. If that happens, so that's all right too. You know what I'm saying? For
Well, exactly, because he's just told this story, so he has to now defend why he's telling this story. But again, this is what I mean. There's no matching. It doesn't match with what they say. There's literal contradictions the moment they speak. But what's really sad is that you went through that experience, and that is sad. Nobody should be beaten up for whatever reason. So that's really sad, and I'm glad that he has spoken about it. And he says that his radical non-duality has helped him address it. So um, I won't disrespect that because that's what he's apparently saying.
or making it into a big, big thing because it's really nothing. Yeah. But
Well, to be honest, if there is injustice going on, should you not speak about it? The fact that you will say, well, nothing's happening, there's nobody here, and does that mean that you ignore all the horrible injustices that are happening on the planet? Again, this type of radical pseudo non-duality, uh, it does not work in the world. Unfortunately, it does not work with dealing with our issues, which spirituality is all about doing. Real non-duality and the traditional Advaita is about addressing not only who you really are or what you really are, but also the injustices that happen on the world and in the world and the things we need to improve upon. So, yeah, ridiculous.
if there is, if anyone is listening to this, what I'm saying, as a precaution, this communication, if there's someone that has trauma, what happens with counseling or trauma therapy is also what's happening. There's nothing wrong or right about that. It's not a suggestion not to do any of that, because anything that arises is what is, including trauma healing or something.
Okay, interesting. He's been a bit more nicer in terms of addressing the aspect of trauma. But again, if it's there, you have to deal with it. To say it is what is not going to get rid of the trauma. So, or to say that one has to go through counseling is what is. Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. Because again, if someone's going through that trauma and they address it, they go out of that trauma. It didn't happen because they accept what it is. They have to deal with their thoughts. They have to deal with the incessant chatter. They have to see where their core belief is that is causing the fear or the trauma or the depression. So there is a deep dive. To just say we have to accept what it is or there is just what it is not going to help somebody. It's not practical. So yeah.
But this communication, what it basically saying is that whatever arises is what is.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever arises is what is. Well, actually, yeah, that's true, but you can also transcend it. You can always move forward from it. You can get over it. So, for example, someone should not just accept that they've got trauma and then just live with it. No, they have to. We would want to invite them to transcend that trauma and try to address the trauma and get better. So, do you see, like, there's two different responses? The traditional Advaita would be the one that I've just expressed now. This pseudo-nonduality responds to it that way. In what they're saying is basically, if you have trauma arising, you have trauma arising. Do nothing about it. Like, that's just not a good response, in my opinion.
I think I'm there, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, okay, the difference would be that
Poor lady.
it's just all the emotions. It's still felt.
It is. Yeah.
It's still felt, but because there's no history, it's not charged. Maybe.
Yeah. There's no contraction, right? It's openness.
Well, no, there's always history behind our emotions. And if those emotions make us crippled in terms of into depression and anxiety or panic or anger, we have to deal with those things. So to say there's no history, it's just not logical.
There's just this complete openness to whatever arises, right? And it could be sadness, it could be whatever. But in the apparent instance in this character, there was just this openness to it. So
this is the difference between the traditional route and this route, the pseudo non-duality. We do say that there can be a cessation of suffering and there can be a complete transcendence of suffering and pain and sad emotions and all this, and you can enter a state of blissfulness. Satchitananda is what that means. So, when you're grounded in the truth that you are consciousness is blissfulness. So, in my opinion, their way doesn't take you to that ultimate freedom. Actually, it shows you the space of freedom, but doesn't take you to freedom. It doesn't let you absorb in the freedom. So that's the difference, I feel. Just listening in, Emerson has provided it more clarity in terms of his answers. They're a lot better than the other lot. But I think sometimes, the nicer people, like Emerson is, I think he's genuinely maybe a nice person, but when you mix that with half truths and bad philosophy, it can be disastrous. Because he can seem really genuine, and whenever someone has had enough with this pseudo non-duality, they're going to be turned off from spirituality as a whole. They'd be turned off from non-duality, genuine non-duality, because of the likes of Emerson, who are nice and who may be actually genuine people on this, who's fallen under the trap of thinking this is a real solution to our issues.
really nothing. And when the apparent, the sensations of history came, it was just seen as an appearance. It was not held onto as, oh, poor me or whatever, or looking behind my back or anything like that, because it's like, kind of like, I like using this dream analogy, right? It's kind of like in a dream. You can have a really horrific nightmare, but when you wake up, although no one wakes up, Everything that seemed to happen in that horrific nightmare is seen as not really have happened. It's empty.
Yeah.
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 It's empty. Again, another issue I have when you say that to someone. It's just not good. Well, you're gonna die. That's empty. Is what really they should just say and end it. I mean, why carry on for another 30 minutes? And why is poor Corey asking questions? There's no answer, really. There's just emptiness.
Right. And so when somebody has a dream,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and that dream, if they're going through, oh, it's just something happened to me about
Yeah.
dream, and I'm just thinking it's probably just a story, but I was going through some years ago a very, very difficult challenge in my life, losing somebody, and a child, and I had a dream, and the dream was so real,
Oh yeah.
and it came in a picture form.
Mm.
And a friend just said to me, "What does that dream mean?" It was like Daddy Longlegs, insects tumbling out of a wardrobe. The doors
Mm-mm.
flew open, all these insects flew out.
Yeah.
And my friend said to me, "Corrie, what do these insects mean to you?" And I
Mm.
said, "They're creepy crawlies." And they're like, this is just a story, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not probably relevant, but it was just amazing. As soon as I saw they were creepy crawlies, my friend said, "What do creepy crawlies mean to you?"
Yeah.
I knew the answer to what I had to do, and I had to face the biggest fear of my life. It's losing a child to live the other
Oh.
side of the world with someone I couldn't tolerate to be near. And I knew I'd got to speak up and face that, knowing that I could lose her because she was in love with this guy. So, that dream, it was absolutely amazing. And I walked out the house after speaking to both of them, my honesty, how I felt. And it was like I was on cloud cuckoo land. It was like just drifted, the light carried me down. I couldn't lower my head to get in the car. I had to dance
Yeah.
like down the. So that was just a dream. But how does that happen? Because it's so obvious what it was telling me.
Yeah, there is actually really, it's all just this space or this emptiness, and anything, any appearance like meaning, or I used to, when I used to dream, I used to have a dream book or Google it, what that dream meant, right? So it's an appearance, thinking of another appearance, which is just another appearance, which is
But
just
then,
another. I know that it seems really meaningful, and I don't want to kind of like burst the bubble or anything like that here. But what's seen is that any appearance can only come up with appearances, or an illusion can only come up with an illusion. So everything that the illusion ponders or conjures up is going to be an illusion. The illusion can't get out the illusion, and it only functions in illusion. So a dream will just dream of another dream, and it just basically functions in dream. It doesn't have any meaning or purpose. And it's hard to say that, you know what I'm saying, especially with emotions and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
it's also liberating.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And even though there's no future and the dream's pointing to something in the future,
That
that's
that's what
same.
I mean. That the dream
Yeah.
is just coming up with another dream. It's dreaming of another dream about the future that does not exist. So
Yes.
the whole shebang does
That answer's pretty pointless.
not exist. Yeah.
But it's mind-boggling, really.
It's mind-boggling because it makes no sense. I'm a bit like Corey, but I feel that Corey has probably a deeper question, which I don't think this pseudo-nonduality is going to answer.
Yeah.
Really, so mind-boggling.
It is, and that's what's difficult about this communication, because it's so brutally honest that it will express
It's not honest, it's completely dishonest.
that. It's not going to coddle, you know what I'm saying, and say, well, that means this and that, and
Well, I don't do that even in the traditional Advaita. I mean, the thing is, I will turn around and say, if something is, if we're creating more of an elaborate story out of something anyway. So, for example, do dreams have a meaning? I don't know. I can't really say, but I definitely will not be convincing somebody that their dreams have a meaning. I'll just say, well, you had a dream. You will know what it means, but that's it. Or just let the dream remain where the dream appeared from and disappeared from to. Let it just stay there. Don't ponder on it too much if it's just going to stifle you. Sometimes dreams address certain issues that we have, and therefore that's good. But yeah, it's a lot more nuanced than the answers that these pseudo-non-dualists are giving. I don't know if I'm going to how long I'm going to carry on for with this. I'm going to finish whenever Corey finishes.
Maybe it just straight goes to the jugular that it's really nothing. And it's hard sometimes to hear that, but that's what's being expressed here, is that it's really confronting this communication, because it sheds a light that there's never been anything. And it's also liberating
no sense.
when there's an apparent release from that recurring dream, because what's being expressed here is like a recurring dream. It's kind of like, okay, it's just a dream. It doesn't have any significance, because any dreams are just dreams or just appearances, kind of like that quote, appearing in space.
And that's also nothingness beyond that anyway, like you were just talking about. So that really
what are they talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point of continuing on the conversation?
I used to, when I was seeking, I used to put meaning in everything. I used to put in synchronicities, signs, and I was quite neurotic. I would see 11:11, on the clock. I'm like, this is meaning. I have to do something, or anything.
That was his way of dealing with spirituality. To say, I mean, now I can see why he's fallen in love with this type of stuff, because what he was dabbling in was complete nonsense anyway.
Or if
he's only swapped one nonsense for another nonsense, so
somebody had, I'm like, oh, this is a deja vu or something, there's something, or everything that because the dream keep on dreaming to keep the dream that this is reality, that this is really happening. The illusion will keep on supporting the illusion that this is real. So even those synchronicities or ideas or dreams or signs, I took everything, or superstitions or ideas about, whatever that appears, are just really dust in space. It doesn't really matter. It's just particles. It's just dreams in deep sleep.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can talk more about it if you like later.
But there's no point chatting more about it. You're just going to say the same thing anyway. Just want to see if there's anything interesting.
Imagination of what that would be like.
Yeah, so it conjures up ideas about what emptiness is, right? Kind of like what I talked in my first one, and the second one, I think I touched upon it, that the moment that it is made into an understanding or an experience, then it blurs it, right? Because the particle or the appearance is thinking that it's obstacle.
Good response.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But Emerson's saying there's no thoughts, but Emerson
this communication.
Okay, so David appears. I want to see what David
because
says.
Thoughts are not even. They're not.
Oh, finger trouble. Hello again. So yesterday. Yesterday, with the first time you said there are no thoughts, my ears pricked up, and I thought, oh, this is new. I've not really heard this said much, and it's been said so often. I just have to ask the question. It's an obvious question to ask, and I'm sure you're going to give me a really good response.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But Emerson's saying there's no thoughts, but Emerson does think, oh, I'll put the kettle on because I'm going to make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
So just quickly explain to me how
Yeah,
there are no
yeah.
thoughts again.
Yeah, the apparent theme of this 12 day is the unknowable nothing, right? So there's nothing in everything. Um, and So, as I said earlier, in deep sleep, there's this appearance, this dream, like thoughts that are not really happening. In this spaciousness, kind of like what Schrodinger explained, there's particles that are not really, just an apparition. So this is all formless. So this is all thoughtless. There's an appearance of thought. There's an appearance of whatever. Um, and the funny thing when I was kind of like writing this this 12 day, not 12 days, sorry, 4 day 12 sessions
Don't you
event
get
of like
everyone excited? Oh, 12 days.
let's
God,
make it
that'd
a
be
whole
lot for
year.
us.
There's just this how can I expand on nothing? You know what I'm saying? There's just this nothing. So it's an exhaustion, because
There's nothing you can expand on with nothing. That's the issue. Once there's nothing, that's it. It stops. No more. You can't expand upon nothing. Then it's not nothing. So again, clearly, he's not understanding anything, or the philosophy he's giving is ridiculous.
everything is talked about, as everything's being expressed, that there's really nothing. So in this expression of nothing, there's deep sleep. There's synonymous. You know what I'm saying? Thoughtlessness is nothing. Thoughts are nothing. Mind is nothing. So it seems like there's this freshness here, because there's a apparently creative character here that talks about nothing, and it's just an expression of nothing in a fresh way.
Mm.
Yeah. But it's not really fresh
Yeah.
because all of this seems to have been talked about. But since there's no history, it's just an appearance. So all of this talk about there's an appearance of someone kind of like having an idea, but that's all appearances. So all
Yeah.
appearances are nothing, including
So,
thoughts, ideas, time, anything and everything.
yeah, it's basically sometimes when we discuss this message, we indulge the appearance, and other times we're absolute, and that's what you're saying. There are no thoughts.
Yeah.
But
there are no
sometimes we
thoughts.
might say, I'm not quoting you here, but you hear people say, well, the trouble with the me is it wants this and it does this, and that's when we're into a more compromising discussion, because we're letting a little bit, we're letting a little of something in, which ultimately we're saying isn't. We're just indulging it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thanks
yeah.
very
So
much.
of course. Thank you, David.
Oh no,
Keep
go on if you want.
I'm done with this. So, yeah, nothing really to add on to other than, well, tell me what you thought about it. What did you think about this? For me, I didn't really think much of what he said. It wasn't unique or great. So yeah, I just think it was standard stuff. Um, nothing more, but just the same thing as every pseudo non-dualist we've heard. There's nothing different. Everything has been roughly the same type of language. So yeah. So yeah, really, I would say Emerson is probably the nicer one that I've seen, more pleasant. His demeanor is really nice, but still, he's giving a dangerous message, and fundamentally, that's what it is. But yeah, let me know if you've disagreed with what I've said. Let me know if you've agreed with what I've said. Let me know. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the meditation class. You can find the details in the video description. If you'd like to support what I do check out my Patreon page. Thank you, Susan. The whole aim is to highlight the pitfalls, the issues, the things that are that just don't make sense, and where fundamentally, when vulnerable people take on this message of radical non-duality, as I say, or pseudo non-duality, as I would term it as, it's going to have, and it's going to have issues. That's not to say that there's no issues with the traditional Advaita either. There may be pitfalls there too, and when we go through those things, we will address them, and we will say whether there's a problem with it or not. So for me, the whole aim is to address those pitfalls as much as possible, and to ensure that people find the right way, the right approach, the right understanding, and that should bring them forward in their spiritual journey. And that's the aim, really. But yeah, but thank you for appreciating it. I would really like to keep doing this. So next week we will be going through Atma Bodh. So we're going to go back to foundational text, and improve our understanding even further, deepening our understanding. So then when we come to the next week, when we'll probably have more people to look at and more videos, we can address that now. But yeah, thank you for watching. Do take care. Have a good weekend. I haven't picked on anyone that I'm going to look at next. If there's anyone, let me know. Do comment on this video, and let me know who you would like me to look at next. It can be any spiritual person. It doesn't just have to be a pseudo non-dualist. It can be anybody you would like me to talk about. I'll be more than happy to look into what they say and look at the positives. Oh yes, beyond UG. So I'll look at UG next then. UG Krishnamurti. I will have a look at that. For sure. So that'll be my next one then. So that'll be not next week, but the following week from there is when I look at that. So, but yeah, right. Take care, everyone. See you. Have a good weekend. If I see you tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow. If not, I'll see you in the next live stream. Okay. Bye.